The siege of Leningrad stands as one of the darkest chapters of World War II. From September 1941 to January 1944, the city of Leningrad was trapped in a brutal siege by the German Wehrmacht and Finnish forces. Over 900 days and nights, the city's inhabitants endured unimaginable hardship. Starvation, disease, and relentless bombardment became a part of daily life. The siege of Leningrad was a testament to the horrors of war and the resilience of the human spirit. The siege began just 3 months after the German invasion of the Soviet Union. Hitler saw Leningrad as a symbol of Soviet power and a strategic prize. Its capture would be a major blow to Soviet morale and open a path to Moscow. The siege was a calculated act of terror, designed to break the will of the Soviet people. The city's defenders, a mixture of regular army and hastily assembled militias, were determined to resist. They knew that Leningrad, the birthplace of the Russian Revolution, held immense symbolic value. The stage was set for a prolonged and bitter struggle. The fate of Leningrad hung in the balance, a stark reminder of the human cost of war. The German advance on Leningrad was swift and brutal. Hitler's armies, fueled by early victories, swept across the Soviet frontier. Their objective, Leningrad, the jewel of the Baltic and a vital port city. Leading the charge was Field Marshal Wilhelm Ritter von Leeb and his Army Group North, their mission to crush Soviet resistance and capture the city. On the Soviet side, the defense of Leningrad fell to General Georgy Zhukov. A brilliant strategist, Zhukov was tasked with halting the German advance and fortifying the city. His forces were outnumbered and outgunned, but their determination to defend their homeland was unwavering. The Red Army fought with tenacity, inflicting heavy casualties on the advancing Germans. However, the Wehrmacht's advance was relentless. Soviet forces were pushed back towards Leningrad, their lines stretched thin. By late August 1941, the Germans had reached the outskirts of the city. The last rail link to Leningrad was severed on August 30th, marking the beginning of the siege. The city and its inhabitants were trapped. As German forces encircled Leningrad, a sense of dread settled over the city. The reality of their situation became horrifyingly clear. They were surrounded, cut off from the rest of the Soviet Union. The Luftwaffe, Germany's air force, began a relentless bombing campaign. Factories, hospitals, and civilian areas were targeted, turning the city into a fiery inferno. Food and supplies dwindled with each passing day. Rations were slashed, leaving the population hungry and desperate. Winter was fast approaching, and with it, the threat of freezing temperatures and further hardship. The city's infrastructure crumbled under the weight of the siege. Electricity became a luxury, and water supplies were often contaminated. Despite the dire circumstances, Leningrad citizens refused to surrender. They organized themselves into civilian defense units, working tirelessly to extinguish fires, clear rubble, and tend to the wounded. The city's spirit, though battered, remained unbroken. As the siege wore on, hunger became the most insidious enemy. Food supplies dwindled to a trickle, forcing Leningrad's inhabitants to scavenge for sustenance. People ate anything they could find: grass, wallpaper paste, even leather belts. The daily bread ration, a meager symbol of survival, shrank to a mere fraction of its pre-siege size. Malnutrition ravaged the population, leaving them weak and vulnerable to disease. Scurvy, dysentery, and typhus spread through the weakened populace like wildfire. Hospitals, overwhelmed with the sick and dying, struggled to cope with the sheer scale of the crisis. Death became a constant companion. The winter of 1941 to 1942 was particularly brutal. Temperatures plummeted, freezing the city and its inhabitants. People burned furniture and books to stay warm, but many succumbed to the cold. The frozen corpses of those who perished littered the streets, a grim testament to the siege's toll. Section 5. Lifeline on Ladoga. Lake Ladoga, a vast expanse of water to the east of Leningrad, offered a tenuous lifeline. The Road of Life, as it became known, was a perilous route across the frozen lake. Trucks and horse-drawn sledges braved thin ice and German bombardment to deliver vital supplies to the besieged city. The Road of Life was a logistical nightmare. The ice was treacherous, and vehicles often plunged through, taking their precious cargo with them. German artillery and Luftwaffe aircraft targeted the route, making every journey a gamble with death. Yet, despite the dangers, the flow of supplies, however meager, continued. The road of life was a symbol of hope and resilience. It demonstrated the Soviet Union's unwavering commitment to Leningrad's survival. The supplies it brought, while insufficient to alleviate the suffering entirely, provided a lifeline for the city and its people. Section 6. Holding the line. While civilians struggled to survive within the besieged city, the Red Army fought valiantly to break the siege. Soviet troops dug into a defensive perimeter around Leningrad, repelled repeated German assaults. They faced a determined enemy, well-equipped and eager for victory. The battles were fierce and bloody, with heavy casualties on both sides. Soviet soldiers, often outnumbered and outgunned, displayed incredible courage and tenacity. They knew that the fate of Leningrad rested on their shoulders. Their resistance prevented the Germans from capturing the city outright, but the siege continued. The Red Army launched a series of counterattacks, seeking to break the German encirclement. However, these offensives were often poorly planned and met with stiff German resistance. The front lines around Leningrad remained largely static, locked in a deadly stalemate. Section 7. Operation Iskra, a glimmer of hope. In January 1943, after months of planning, the Red Army launched Operation Iskra, or Spark. This offensive aimed to break the siege of Leningrad and drive a wedge through the German lines. Soviet forces, bolstered by reinforcements and new equipment, attacked with renewed ferocity. Operation Iskra, after days of heavy fighting, achieved a significant breakthrough. Soviet forces linked up south of Lake Ladoga, creating a narrow land corridor to Leningrad. This victory, while strategically limited, was a major morale booster for the besieged city. The corridor, while heavily bombarded by German artillery, allowed for increased supplies to reach Leningrad. The road of life could now be supplemented by rail and road transport, easing the city's dire situation. Operation Iskra marked a turning point in the siege, a sign that the tide was beginning to turn. By 1944, the tide of war had turned decisively against Nazi Germany. The Red Army, hardened by years of conflict and buoyed by a series of victories, was on the offensive. In January 1944, a massive Soviet offensive, Operation January Thunder, aimed to liberate Leningrad once and for all. The offensive, spearheaded by a powerful artillery barrage, shattered the German lines around Leningrad. Soviet troops advanced rapidly, liberating towns and villages that had been under German occupation for years. The beleaguered defenders of Leningrad, their strength renewed, joined the counterattack. On January 27, 1944, after 872 days of siege, Leningrad was finally liberated. The remaining German forces were driven back, ending their stranglehold on the city. The long nightmare was finally over. The liberation of Leningrad was met with scenes of jubilation and relief. However, the city that emerged from the siege bore deep scars. Years of bombardment and deprivation had taken their toll. Buildings lay in ruins, and the streets were filled with rubble. The human cost of the siege was staggering. Estimates vary, but over 1 million civilians perished during the 872 days of siege. The majority succumbed to starvation and disease, their bodies weakened by years of deprivation. The siege left an indelible mark on the city's psyche. The survivors, physically and emotionally drained, faced the daunting task of rebuilding their lives and their city. The memories of the siege, the hunger, the loss, and the constant fear would continue to haunt them for years to come. The siege of Leningrad stands as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable hardship. The city's inhabitants endured unimaginable suffering, yet their will to resist never faltered. Their courage and sacrifice became a symbol of Soviet resistance during the war. The siege also serves as a stark reminder of the horrors of war and the devastating consequences of totalitarian regimes. The suffering inflicted upon Leningrad's civilian population was a calculated act of cruelty, designed to break their spirit and secure a military victory. Leningrad, now St. Petersburg, has risen from the ashes of war. The city has been rebuilt, its scars gradually fading with time. However, the memory of the siege lives on, a reminder of the human cost of conflict and the enduring strength of the human spirit. The siege of Leningrad stands as a testament to human endurance. The citizens of Leningrad faced unimaginable hardship, Yet they never surrendered. They faced starvation, disease, and relentless bombardment with unwavering courage and determination. The stories of their resilience are both heartbreaking and inspiring. Parents sacrificed their meager rations for their children. Teachers continued to hold classes in bomb shelters. Musicians played concerts amidst the ruins, reminding their fellow citizens of the beauty that war could not extinguish. The Siege of Leningrad reminds us that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit can endure. It is a testament to the power of hope, resilience, and the unyielding will to survive.